Greetings, everyone. This is mkwann, and it is October 4th, 2024. This video is a follow-up to the video I just put out regarding the flooding in western North Carolina and the link with the River and Stars ceremonies. And so it's actually driven by this comment, which was posted a couple days ago. So let's begin with this. It says, I would delete this video. Taking credit for the flooding of Asheville isn't a good look without knowing or stating why this is a good thing. I speak off the top of my head when I make these videos. So if I had said in that video that I was taking credit for the flood of Asheville, then I certainly misspoke. That was not the intention of the video which I made. What the intention was pointing out the obvious links between the two events. This channel and the videos I make here have always been an exploration between the links of the inner world and the outer world, and an exploration into the mystery of life. And so that was the attitude or the intent which I held in the other video, is to point out that there's a link here between these two events. What exactly the link is, I'm not certain, but I'm definitely not implying any sort of causation, nor would I want to take responsibility for for all of that destruction. It's just silly to think someone would want to take responsibility. But that being said, let me go deeper with this link. Let's go look at it from another angle. So Hurricane Helene has a resonance with another hurricane called the 1896 Cedar Key hurricane, and they connect in many ways, and we'll first look at how they connect in time and space. So first, just a little bit of history as it relates to naming storms. The history of naming hurricanes dates back to the 1800s, when hurricanes might be identified by the places they hit, the years they occurred, or the name of a saint. And it was in the 1950s they began naming storms with like human beings' names. And so the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane was a powerful and destructive cyclone that devastated much of the United States, east coast of the United States, starting with Florida's Cedar Keys near the end of September 1896. So the real beginning of this storm was Florida's Cedar Keys. So let's go back to the contemporary time and Hurricane Helene. This is a supposed satellite image. This is where you could see she is coming. She makes landfall. I assume they define that by where the eye hits, but that's still, I guess kind of general. But the where the hurricane hit was right here in what's known as the Big Bend region of Florida. And here it says that she made landfall just east of the Aquia. I don't know how to pronounce this. The Aquia River's mouth. So that's right here. And right here is Cedar Key. This is about 70 miles in distance from one another. So if this is the river mouth, I would imagine that Cedar Key is somewhere around here. And if that's 70 miles, it's probably 250 miles in diameter right there. Big storm. So Cedar Key probably took the biggest hit at least from the Florida coast of, took the biggest hit from the hurricane. And again, this hurricane is just named what it's named, the Cedar Keys hurricane, because of where it came on shore, or even more so, where the where the devastation was most intense in Florida. Now, keep in mind, this is 1896, and a lot of Florida, particularly that part of Florida, was just really beginning to take shape. It wasn't necessarily as well established, the infrastructure of cities, as many other cities in the East Coast or the eastern side of the United States, the late 1800s. And we can see right here that from Helene, that this is the 6 places that saw the worst storm surge. You know, it's kind of hard to really define, I suppose, what has the most damage per se, but we, in an objective way, but we can measure storm surge, and we see these are the 6 places that got hit the worst: Cedar Key, East Bay, Old Port Tampa, Clearwater Beach, St. Pete, and Port Manatee. And they're listed in order of how much, how high was the storm surge. And here we see Cedar Key is well above 8 feet. And then we see East Bay and Old Port Tampa are second and third, with their storm surge being beneath 8 feet. So there's a correspondence with one, where these two came inland. And again, like, you know, whether you call this Cedar Key or you call this Perry, Florida, it's all in the same sort of part of the world, but we know that Cedar Key is significant in both of these storms. But we're just kind of getting started right now. We can see that Hurricane Helene, it was formed September 24th, 2024, and dissipated September 29th, 2024. And this storm lines up the same time frame, September 22nd to September 30th. To put this into more real-time convention for when this occurred, both of these storms happened probably one lunar phase following the autumnal equinox. If the autumnal equinox falls somewhere between September 20th, 21st, we could see that both of these, both of these storms hit Florida and were formed in the days following the equinox. So they're linked in space and they're linked in time. And there has to have been other storms, or most likely there are other storms that may fall in this time-space link as well. Definitely in space, for Big Bend, Florida, is it gets hit by a lot of storms, a lot of hurricanes. Maybe like 30 or 40 have made their inland route through the Big Bend, but not all of them fall necessarily on the exact same time position relative to the days following the autumnal equinox. And then certainly not all were as devastating as these two, as we're about to see. But even more interesting is the time, the years, or the solar cycles. That's what a year is. A year is a measurement of a solar cycle. And a solar cycle is, you know, from equinox to equinox, or from solstice to solstice. It's just a year is one complete loop. And there are 128 years between these two events. And 128 is a meaningful frequency. Now, its meaning is mostly talked about in terms of hertz or vibrations per second, 128 vibrations per second. But 128 solar cycles is in resonance with it. It might be a little bit easier for us to identify or to conceptualize 128 vibrations per second than it is to think of 128 years as a frequency, but that's because we exist within that frequency, and it's often more difficult to see what we exist within. And what I mean by we exist within is a lifespan will fall within 128 years per se, though we can look at 1 second, or a measurement of time in something much smaller than our life expectancy. We can understand that concept much easier because we can see second and second and second and second, and we can see cycles more clearly than 128 years, 128 years, 128 years. But nonetheless, they're both frequencies, and we can go and look at the 128 hertz is the standard pitch of universal music. It is the basis of the frequency of the model of the naturally pure tuning. This mood system is mathematical, scientific, but can develop cosmic spiritual dimensions for the learner. If you're interested in more about 128 hertz, you can go to, there's a website, that's where these screenshots are from a website with 128 hertz as its name, 128hertz.com. You can go and learn more about the unique qualities of 128 hertz, and then just kind of extrapolate within your own understanding that the resonant period of 128 years is somehow a mirrored reflection. So now we've got a correspondence between these two events, which are in time is defined by its relationship to the autumnal equinox, space in terms of where on Earth these storms moved off of ocean onto the mainland, and now we see they're also linked via a universal frequency of 128. So what's the link with the river and stars? All right, so let's go back to this thing right here, this flyer. This flyer was made in January of 2024. I've showed it countless times, and it shows the list of where the River and Stars tour would be, and began in Sunbury. And then the second one was on May Day at High Point Scenic Vista in Pennsylvania. And I've talked about High Point Scenic Vista many times due to its significance with the Susquehanna Mystery. And it was held on May 1st, or what's also known as May Day. And the reason why it was held then, not because it's a pagan ritual, but because, that's where we get the May Day holidays from, but because those holidays are based upon objective key points of the solar cycle being measured by the equinoxes and the solstices, when there is when the sun goes from the most amount of light to the least amount of light to balanced light. And then there are 4 other significant points, which are the midpoints between the equinoxes and the solstices. And that's like Imbolc on February 2nd, May Day, Halloween or Samhain is another one of these midpoints, and Lammas is the 4th. And it's these 8 dates, the equinoxes, the solstices, and the midpoints between, which have always been marked as the wheel of the year, is what it's known as in some cultures. But regardless of what it's known as, it's an objectively real and measurable cycle. So, to tap into those cycles is the reason why the second event of the River and Stars was held on May 1st, and then the meaningful location of the 40th parallel, that's why that location was selected. So let's move forward. Here's a picture of the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge over the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania. This is what the bridge looks like, and this was a picture of it before it was destroyed in the 1896 hurricane, the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane. Here's another picture. This is a picture afterwards. Here's a picture of the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge after the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane, the hurricane which is in harmony or resonates with Hurricane Helene. And so let's go and let's look at this. This is Columbia. This is Wrightsville. This is the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge. This is where that bridge was, right here. And this is where High Point Scenic Vista is. This is the 40th parallel at the Susquehanna River. This is where the whole Susquehanna mystery began. I was living here in Marietta. In fact, when I recorded the last video, I was staying with a friend in Marietta at that time. So this location, it's seemingly significant and charged. We'll get back to that in a moment. Actually, no, we'll go right there right now. We'll jump ahead. We've got this from the TV show Loki, the Disney-produced TV show Loki, whatever the hell that may be. In the background of one of the shots is Wrightsville, Pennsylvania. And this TV monitor from the TV show Loki is said to be on the wall of this seemingly fictitious organization, which is known as the Time Variance Authority. The Time Variance Authority is a bureaucratic organization that exists outside of time, space, and monitors the timeline. So this is what that's from. Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, January 6th, 1832. We see right here, the date is associated with the destruction of the first Wrightsville Bridge, which happened 30 days later. This here is the third incarnation of the Wrightsville Bridge. So the Wrightsville Bridge has been destroyed multiple times. The second iteration was due to the Civil War. In fact, that's when the Civil War turned the tide, or it was the setup for the Battle of Gettysburg, which is when the Civil War turned its tide, a major event. So we see this spot being significant for multiple reasons. We'll go a little bit deeper. This is High Point Scenic Vista right here. This is the 40th parallel. And High Point, located right there, is at 40 degrees, 0 minutes, and 6 seconds. 6 seconds in latitude is roughly 600 feet. So the peak of High Point Scenic Vista is 600 feet from this 40th parallel, which is the entire basis of the Susquehanna mystery, which is the 40th parallel on the Susquehanna River. I've talked about High Point numerous times. This is what it looks like from the top. It is perfectly balanced between these three colleges, Elizabethtown, York College, and Franklin and Marshall, all three having connections with founders who are involved with the Rosicrucian organization, and within Rosicrucianism, they talk about the Invisible College. It's not even just these three. In fact, what it actually is, let's see, where's that slide? thought I had that slide here, which shows that this leg actually continues down to Washington College on this exact same line, and it makes a cross. It actually makes a rose cross. Again, I don't know how this stuff happens, but it happens. And that's part of what this exploration is. Here's a picture of what it looks like from Google Earth. And we see the sun and the moon is, this crescent sun and moon is a symbol which has been used by, secret societies and magical societies for quite a bit of time. And here we see that this storm right here, which came inland in the same place as Hurricane Helene, and the point of the last video was showing this connection between Helene and the River and Stars ceremony, and now we can see that the River and Stars ceremony, which is grounded in the Susquehanna River, and specifically the 40th at High Point Scenic Vista and Sunbury, that this area has also been destroyed by a harmonic storm. Try to wrap your minds around that. I'm not saying causation. I'm saying there's a friggin' link here. We even go with this. This is just the Wrightsville description of the 1896 Cedar Key storm, and it's describing. It says the third incarnation of the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge was shoved off its piers and demolished by the intense winds. Sentence, and then it says, at Sunbury, two steamboats sank in the Susquehanna. So there we see. Remember, this all began April 8th at Sunbury. In fact, we go and we look at this again. The previous video points out that the River and Stars ceremony was kicked off by the collapse of the Key Bridge. And now we've got this bridge collapse right here. We see Sunbury is mentioned by name right there. These are Sunbury and High Point Scenic Vista are like 115 miles apart from one another. There's a lot in between the Wrightsville Bridge and Sunbury, which would have also been affected by this storm, or seemingly affected. Yet these are the two pieces of data which are, linked in this paragraph, at least in Wikipedia. And so this is let's go and look at this. So now we're going to go and look. This is Asheville. Here we see Asheville right here, and we see Asheville is not only is the French Broad there, but what caused a lot of the flooding was where the French Broad had a confluence with the Swannanoa River. So we've got the Swannanoa River, which is in Asheville. It ends with the confluence with the French Broad at the Biltmore Estates in Asheville. And then we go and we look at Cedar Key, and at Cedar Key we see that this is where the Suwannee River enters into the Gulf of Mexico, the Suwannee River. So you got the Suwannanoa River and the Suwannee River. So we know that those two are linked in our story. So let's go back and we look over here in the Susquehanna at the same place, and we're looking for some sort of a third river, perhaps, with the SWANN in it, and you're not going to find any because the only one you're going to find in the Susquehanna is seemingly me. I'm being a little silly when I say that, but I mean that's exactly how this story is unfolding. So the remainder of this comment is seemingly some degree of questioning of my process. I mean, I don't even know what it means. Taking credit for the flooding of Asheville isn't a good look without knowing or stating why this is a good thing. I mean, if I stated it was a good thing, would it be a good look then? I mean, that doesn't make sense. I don't think you are talking to the land or the river in your sessions. So are you going to get hit by the laws of nature? Huh? Do you even ask permission to work with the river or land? How do you clear the river or land for a new destiny without doing so? Are you clearing the land or the river issues or yours? So there seemingly is a question or concern with how this, like what my process is. And I guess if one person has that question, maybe multiple people do, just, yeah, but they don't all necessarily post it. The way I understand this, as I try to make sense of my life, again, that's what all these videos are about, is trying to understand this mystery of life and these correlations. But this quote by George Washington Carver always kind of resonated with me. And George Washington Carver was the agricultural genius of the late 1800s, probably best known for the invention of peanut butter. But the quote is, "Anything will give up its secrets if you love it enough. Not only have I found that when I talk to the little flower or the little peanut, they will give up their secrets, but I've found that when I silently commune with people, they give up their secrets also, if you love them enough." And so, I don't know if, personally, I haven't gone through a outward love affair of the Susquehanna River, but all of this began when shortly after I started making art, and I would make art using natural materials, wood and stones and sand, and it is my opinion, taking the George Washington Carver quote makes sense. Like, it's very, very specific about talking secrets, but the truth is, when you develop an authentic relationship with the mystery of the natural world, and whether that being the nature or maybe the force behind nature, as it's described by George Washington Carver, it gives up its secrets. Or I would say more specifically, a circulation begins, a communication begins. And, the comment of permission was put, the word permission was used in that comment. And I get it. I get the idea of asking permission, but I don't think that really makes sense. In fact, I think part of that is based upon a cultural mindset of domination and so forth, because we're such a dominating culture that the antithesis is then asking permission. But that's not exactly how this realm works. Like, you don't ask permission to breathe air. You don't ask permission, if you gotta pee outside. I mean, I guess maybe you could, but when you gotta pee outside. It's part of the circulation. To me, what matters is reverence. Respect, and respect, I think, is maybe more subjective, because respect is going to vary based upon each person's definition, but reverence seems a little bit more appropriate or general, is holding a reverence and holding it in a beautiful way. And so for me, that may have been making art, expressing through these stories, whether that's George Washington Carver talking to the little peanut. It's the same thing. And that's part of what in my opinion, the experience, the individualized experience each of us has here is about is what is that individual way of connecting with the greater, the whole. Like, what is that? What is your own unique way of doing that? Mine has always been art and stories. And here's another example: the writing of the rites of the 40th parallel. This is literally a guidebook for human beings to have a meaningful human experience in a sacred location, and it explains what those links are. My motivation has always been, I've followed my curiosity. Curiosity has led to all of this. Like, whether that was, I was curious if I could make certain pieces of art. I was curious about the Susquehanna River, and that curiosity has always led me in a direction, and I have 100% faith in that relationship. And it is that curiosity, particularly through the curiosity of how life is unfolded naturally, that was the impetus of the River and Stars ceremony. The River and Stars ceremony came about through a book called A Story Waiting to Pierce You, another thing I've talked about multiple times. In that book is where the idea of eros circulation and the definition that eros circulation is a preparation of a land for a new destiny. That's not my language. That's that book's language. Why is that book meaningful? Because of how it came into my life and what was said in the book. In my understanding of life and reality, it was a perfect match. So I leaned into it. That's exactly how this came about for me to do the River and Star ceremony. Now, the videos I'm talking about now is me scratching my head saying, what's going on, guys? Take a look. And if you're watching this, this isn't a mic experience. This isn't even a mic experience with the people who participated in these ceremonies as well. If you're witnessing these videos, you're part of it as well. The cone, does a tree make a sound if it falls in the forest and no one's around, points to the significance of the witness in the life experience on earth. Like, witness matters. And so all of you who are witnessing these videos, who are witnessing these experiences, whether in person or not, like, we're all in this together. This is something which we're involved with. So I'm going to just kind of pause it at that for now. The next part, the ego is running amok on this one, like raising prices for a session you don't even want to do. Many of is conflict that shows those that pay in advance may never get the session, which the sessions are based on the Gregorian birthday. So they're just sucked into your Gregorian reality, not theirs. I'm not really certain what that means, but someone else made a comment that I sounded like a used car salesman. And yeah, there's a truth to that. The Starboard session, the recorded Starboard sessions, actually all the Starboard sessions, this is how I make my livelihood. I live really close to the edge. I don't have many ways of making income. Like, I dropped out of mainstream life to commit myself to a certain way of living. And that doesn't mean I still don't interact with paradigm. I still need to interact with money. And so this is how I bring it in. And there is a truth. I don't like working with the video cameras and all of the technology that comes with doing a remote session is certainly less preferred than when I do an in-person session. I love doing the Starboard sessions. I love working with the people, and I love all that is with that. I just don't like the technology, and the raising and the falling of prices. Yeah, that's just if they have risen and fallen throughout the years, and when I let people know that I'm going to raise prices, that certainly creates a degree of urgency, perhaps, if someone was thinking about doing that, of circulating the energy back to me. Anyone who is consumed this material. I put this material out on YouTube because I'm going to tell these stories no matter what. A lot of people in my inner circle suggest to me that I should charge money I should put all of the videos back behind a paywall and put out teaser videos and make money that way. And I just don't want to do that. I do that occasionally with some videos I don't want to publicly put out. And it does feel appropriate to me that there should be some degree of circulation back from what I put out there, and if it's consumed by other people. But to me, the bigger importance is, or the greater importance is, the sharing of the story. And I don't want to go down the model of putting everything behind the paywall. So I do Starboard sessions, and I do know that if I'm going to raise prices, well, one, I'll probably get less of the online, or of the recorded sessions, the remote sessions, which is kind of fine by me. But then also to motivate anyone who's thinking about a Starboard session to order one now. Like, yeah, that's part of it. I'm trying to save up money because I'm going down to Austin in November, so I need to bring in some money. That's just the nature of having to work with the paradigm, with the world which we're in. If anyone has a problem with that, take that up with your therapist, I suppose. So anyway, so that's it, my friends. I'm actually really appreciative of this comment because it gave me an opportunity to go a little bit deeper with the link between the Susquehanna River and the work that we're doing here and this hurricane. And now we've got another hurricane, the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane. And I wouldn't have had an opportunity to share that information if it wasn't for this comment. And then also to be able to give a little bit more insight into the process behind the scenes, if anyone has any curiosity, because I suppose it is a little bit of a a grandiose statement of saying that there's a correspondence between a ceremony which we did and then some sort of catastrophic event. And so I guess it is fair to want to ask some more questions about that. So this comment gave me an opportunity to go a little bit deeper with that. And yeah, that's what I got today. I hope everyone is doing well, and keep your eyes peeled for whatever's coming up next. Oh yeah, and I'm also increasing my prices to the Starboard sessions coming up. So if you're interested in getting one, now's the time to order. Take care.